Good evening, RGT racers, and welcome to week 7 and the penultimate week in season 2 of the No Pins Super League series, brought to you by ZenMS Next Level Stream. So today we are on week 7 of an 8-week program. Each course has been selected by one of the No Pins teams, and this week is no different to the rest. Today's course is chosen by Scott Gleason, but we have a total of 30 riders in the pen, I believe now. So let us see what the standings are so far. So in the Platinum Gold standings after stage 6, Igor Kops, who has absolutely dominated the races so far with his power, followed by Rasmus Felber, an extremely attacking rider, always there, and John Beams, who just grinds away in the front group, always attacking, always competitive, always exciting to watch, followed by Jan Vanner from No Pins himself, and all of the names in the top 10 are all names that we recognize. In the silver and bronze category, we see Klaus Vanner, brother of Jan, one of the Wenger boys, leading up the series with a healthy and quite handsome lead over Kevin Barkley, followed by Ted Gable from 3R and Caruso, that great song from the Italian opera singers. Ferrari to make sure that we keep the Italian theme going. Moreno, that sounds very Italian as well, all the way down to Behring in 10th place. And the team standings, always going to be a very competitive competition this. No Pins R3R Racing, who have been absolutely dominant with regards to attacking, followed by ECKD Gold, who are always very tactical, still all to play for. In the silver bronze category, Team EDR are absolutely stomping away with an almost 200-point lead over ECKD Silver, followed by Team 3R, who've been valiantly supporting their fellow No Pins colleagues. So today we have a 13-mile loop of the Temecula region in California, famous area for wine, and I think it covers about 2 dozen wines they create in this region. And this is a really interesting course. So this is 2 laps. So we can see that just a tiny little hump in the middle there where we climb for the first half of the lap, and then the second half of the lap is super fast before we get to a 7% drag just before we hit the downhill finish. This is very much a finish for the sprinters, but very much a course for the climbers. So will we see the climbers start to put the pain into the sprinters in the first half of the course and hopefully hang on as the heavier guys try to catch the draft? Or will we see some team orders where the sprinters are held into the pack by the rest of the team, only to unleash their power in the final 200 to 300 meters? We've seen some great finishes in this series already, from breakaways on the hilly sections to fantastic sprint finishes in the flat sections. Today we have a good number of riders in the pen there today, 51 riders online. Probably some of those are our cameras, but certainly a competitive field, and we have mere seconds to go before we launch off, and I'm fairly sure we'll see that usual customary launch from the start of the RGT racing in approximately 10 seconds time. So who's your money on today? Will we see Kops continuing with his domination? Will we see one of the climbers really put the herd on in this first week, or will we see team orders stick and riders sticking in to try and get over that hump, get the recovery on the downhill before smashing the downhill finish? I think whatever we'll find, we will see some very exciting racing, as always, as we always do in these No Pins Super League Series races. So we are off, and already straight away we can see riders going into the red. Team ADR currently dominating in the silver bronze team category, making their stance known straight away, smashing it off the front, with 2 riders taking it to the rest of the pack. Now, I doubt very much we'll see a breakaway effort at this stage in the race, but stranger things have happened. Caruso, who's doing exceptionally well in the standings at the moment, taking up the head of the field, setting the pace, but it looks like everybody in the front group seems to be staying in there at the moment. I can't see any significant casualties yet. The rest of the team will just be sitting in there, catching the draft, trying to get themselves in a position where they can hang on in this early section of the race and try and just keep their positioning ready for the second half. What will be interesting to see is if we see any real concerted efforts up this first 10 kilometers. This is where it just slowly climbs up the hill, and we can see there's a couple of little stingy sections there. Those couple of red sections on the profile map at the bottom of your screen. This is where we're undoubtedly going to see some of the serious attacking, but in RGT there is no such place as a place to attack. Every single inch of tarmac is always up for grabs for a good attack, and we can see that already. People have started to make their case known. Castro off the front with Caruso behind him leading the field, but I'm fairly sure that we will see the rest of the pack drag these guys back in no time at all. Big hitter Zach Harder starting to close some of these gaps up. They don't want these guys to have too big a lead, and it'd be good to see whether we've got some riders who are prepared to put it out for their team, get themselves into an attacking position and just grind away and put the hurt on the other competitive teams. Castro's still sitting out there, still into the yellow zone. He's still obviously working hard. Caruso's still sitting in that little bit of a gap. Really, Caruso's in no man's land there. He hasn't got the protective draft of Castro there, so he's working a lot harder than he probably needs to. And sensibly, he's just allowing himself just to drop back down into the pack to get a little bit of recovery, let Castro do his work, because essentially they know they are going to catch him up in no time at all. It would be extremely unusual for Castro to take this right to the finish line from 2.7 kilometers out, 2.07 kilometers out, with another 41 kilometers to go. But as I say, stranger things have happened. So week 7. We're in California this week, home to Scott Gleason, one of the Yankee Doodles of the No Pins team. And there's Stephen Briley, one of the No Pins colleagues, closing up to Castro, and no doubt going to go over his shoulder and start putting a real attack in. Zach Harner actually who's putting this attack in early. Now Zach is definitely one to watch. Zach is certainly one of the strong riders here, and for Zach to put an attack in this early on in the race is certainly going to put the cat amongst the pigeons with the rest of the pack, because they know that we've seen Zach take a solo effort out before in the past in Series 1 of the No Pins Super League Series and actually managed to pull off a win with a 2-man attack. So we know that he can do it. And there's Rasmus Feldballer, again one of the attacking riders, continuing to push to try and keep himself in that position and fighting for top spot in his division. Starting to stretch out a little bit now. These are starting just to come on, riders, kind of just trying to just break things out a little bit. Terry Wilkinson from No Pins. Obviously Terry will be missing your attacking prowess tonight, my boy. Predicting that Zach Harner is going to be for the win today. Well, this would be interesting to see whether this is an early sign that Zach's legs are feeling on tip-top form today, and whether he is going to be able to hold that position in the front group to be able to really put the hurt on the rest of these guys. Stephen Briley now joining him in that front group. Rasmus, as usual, in that attacking form, pushing with that front group, and there's a little bit of a break there, but whether this will be sustained, I doubt very much. Kimber from the UK in a very nice fetching purple jersey, taking the front, and name that's a new one. Sam Kimber currently ticking away at 250 watts, which you can see is not strong enough to be able to hold these guys off as the pack absolutely swarms past him. And this is where you have to be careful not to take it too easy and get dropped off the back. The draft in RGT is absolutely brutal. If you just take your foot off the gas, don't pay attention, it is so easy to be dropped. And we can see riders starting to drop off the back of this front pack already. So we're already starting to see some attrition, and we're not even maybe a tenth of the way through the race yet. So we started off with 51 in the pen. We can start seeing some of these riders gradually dropping off as the attacks continue to be put in through this gradual onset. Now We're just starting to kick up a little bit here, 3.3%, 3.5%. This is where we'll start to see some of those power bars starting to go up into the yellow, orange and red, as we definitely will see some riders starting to make some greater attacks in this little bit. There we go, as predicted, Gavash from TMC putting attack in, followed by Shiak and Caruso still there, still wanting to push the front. We haven't seen a great deal from Gavash this series, so it'd be good to see Gav putting in some really good efforts to really see whether he can get himself into a good finishing position, dragging himself up the division. So a relatively small group tonight in comparison to some of the other weeks, but I'm fairly sure that we will see some very competitive racing. From what I can see on the screen, we've got a few key names missing there tonight. No John Beams tonight, which is a shame. It's always really entertaining to see John racing, so it's a shame that John's not there. And I certainly can't see Igor Kops there tonight either, so it's these kind of front positions are all to play for. Aurum from Norway, Finland, getting ready to take the front now. And there's Rasmus. Oh, good to see Rasmus. I've seen that he's lost his afro tonight, but he's got some beautiful pink 70s disco shades on, and he's even got the old fan going in the background on his disco floor. It'd be great if he had some strobe lights going on the ceiling there, but he obviously didn't have time during his warm-up to change the bulbs and just stuck with plain old warm white LEDs. I tell you what, if they're halogens, that won't half be kind of warming his bonds up, and we can see some beautiful reflections from the top of Rasmus's head there today. And he's obviously very warm, otherwise I'm fairly sure he would have his beautiful flowing locks out tonight. Now we can see Rasmus, we can see the efforts, the result of the effort that he's putting out there, putting in some attacks out the front, closed down by Stephen Briley, who is the no pins team member who nearly always either wants to take attack to the team or closes it down. Rasmus, look at that, flexing his pecs there. He obviously does a bit of working out outside of the recycling. He's got a good lighting system going there. Look at the shadows on his ceiling. He's got a ring light there that you can see making his beautiful Danish complexion shining with sweat already. So Rasmus is certainly wanting to take this out to the field there today. Look at those red numbers. This is that red section that we were talking about. This is where we're going to see the concerted efforts to attack. This is where the climbers really want to try and bury these sprinters, really put them in a position where they're really having to struggle. If they can drop the sprinters here, there is very little chance that they will come back, even on this long, slopey downhill section, as we've got another red spiky section to come, another way up this hill. So we can now see this team just starting to break up. It's all starting to thin out, single file. Each single one of the riders is looking at working towards their threshold. What have they got in their legs? Have they got enough of this red zone to be able to take it to the top of this little red section here in the hill? Are they going to be able to hang on to the wheel in front of them? Every single rider will be wanting to hang on to at least 3 or 4 wheels. That will not only give them a good finishing position, but it will also put them in a very strong position for taking some downhill draft. Now we can see that front group certainly has broken away. And we've got a number of no-pins riders in there as well. We've got Briley, Gleason on his home turf, and Zach Harner all vying there with Rasmus Felbeller. And we have a few of the 3R riders as well there for support. Great to have you there again, Christoph. Jenko riding there, just Janko there in 12th position. He's just managing to close down that front group after a really good effort. Red zone, he's now got to try and get a little bit recovery, because before he knows it, there's going to be another red section. But no pins are not letting it lie. They are taking it straight back to the pack. Zach Harner now again attacking off the front, making sure that this front group does not rest on its laurels and not letting this second chase group close them down, which you can see some of the gaps are starting to close. Maybe this second group's having to work really hard, but this extra little dig by Zach will make sure that the second group is really having to put the work in to be able to close this gap and be able to close them down. So we can see this front group now starting to split as well. Zach Harner, Sam Kimber taking it to the front, with Rasmus still there, still being attacking. still with his beautiful pink 70s disco shades and his gorgeous ring lighting, continuing to work hard and no doubt dripping all over the camera as he puts some effort in again on the front. It's great to see Rasmus putting these efforts in again, and good to see Sam Kimber, a name who I am not familiar with, but certainly somebody who seems to be wanting to work hard with these guys in front. We can now see this chase group spearheaded by Gavash trying to close down this front three. They know they can't afford to let this gap get out too far, particularly when we start to hit some of these downhill sections. Otherwise, it will just run away with them. Stephen Briley there in the second group. Zach Harner, Scott Gleason, no pins guys in those three front groups. They won't want to do the work to close down Zach. They will want any other riders around them to do the work. And we can see that R3R guys in that third group really working hard to try and bring it back, to try and get all of their riders into point scoring positions. So it's starting to come back together again now as we're starting to flatten off 0.5%. Will the third group on the road there, will they be able to close it back down again? It looks very possible that they will. It looks like that gap is starting to come down, and I'm fairly sure that we will see these groups coming together again. But I don't expect this to last for more than about 5 kilometers as we go for that second little spiky red bit as they slowly climb up to the 10 kilometers peak on this first lap of 2. So front group now, looks like we have a number of the R3R and no pins guys, so this has put the R3R guys in an extremely strong position. We've got Harner, Gleason, Briley, there's Keeble's there as well. Dan Simpson is there as well. So we've got Dan Simpson from R3R currently. So there's 5 riders there from the 3R team in that front group. This gives them great opportunity to dictate the pace, but Rasmus Felbella just isn't going to allow that to happen. Like an absolute rocket, he's opened up a huge gap really to that front group. 26 meters already. That's a big dig by Rasmus. 5.2 watts per kilogram at the moment, and we can see from that look on his face he's either mixing some tunes there. All he needs is a couple of decent cans on there, and he would just look like he was DJing in Ibiza in the beach club with a bit of maybe a Sol or maybe Desperado down by his side, just within reach of his right hand. Certainly looks the part to be doing a great dance set on the beaches of Ibiza come July 2022. Anybody want some booking requests? Get yourself over to Rasmus. He looks the part, he's got the moves, he's got the effort, and I'm fairly sure he's got the groove to go with it. Zach Harner, fellow American of Scott Gleason, still sitting in the front there, still continuing to work. Rasmus Felbella still got that little bit of a gap, 15 meters now to the chasing 2. Zach Harner's with him. Shayak sounds very much like a good old Michael Jackson song. Does that? Really want to give it a bit of action there with a bit of Michael Jackson. But Shaik is in third position, followed by Sam Kimber, and it's starting to close down, but we are starting to see riders disappearing off the back. Bas Shaik, that is a great name, Bas. That's a great riding name. That certainly just rolls off the tongue, and it just sounds aggressive. Let's see some aggressive riding from Bas in that front group. Ostergaard from TBS just not been able to hold on. He's going to be in normal land now. Castro, after the early attacks, is just disappearing off the back. Is he going to be able to get back on after this red section? But will this front group sense that he's in a bit of bother and just start pushing the pace a little bit to try and keep him at the back? Looks like Castro is just going to do enough to get himself back in the draft and back in the running for these vital points for the No Pains Super Series Season 2 league positions. So, after that little flurry of work, all things start to settle down a bit, seeing some of the riders in the blues, the greens. But no, of course not. Castro, looking like he was going to be suffering for a moment there, decides to come straight over the top, puts in attack, and that's a good attack. 7 watts per kilogram. He's opened up 28 meters again. What are the pack going to do? I suspect that seeing Castro disappearing off the back for a bit, I'm fairly sure they're confident that he's not going to be able to hold that out there for very long. But he's coming to the top of the climb. We can see we've got about half a kilometer to go before we hit the peak of this first lap. Are the pack going to just bide the time? Are they going to let him stay out there and then use the draft of the group down the other side of the hill to close the gap back up and bring it all back together again? If it was me, I'm fairly sure I'd be wanting to sit in the draft, just getting comfortable as a group, letting Castro stay out there, make him work hard, and then catch him up on the other side of the group. We can see on the top left of your screen there is all the rider metrics that tell us all about what's happening with these RGT guys. We can see the power, the cadence, the heart rate, but we're currently following Castro, who doesn't have a heart rate monitor on. Now that's always a bit more tricky for us as race organisers to be able to validate racers' performance. So unless they've got a good history of heart rate data, that always puts a rider in the possible danger of being disqualified because they are unable to validate their performance. Zakana, good boy, with his heart rate monitor on there, which we'd expect ticking over 150 beats per minute. That's comfortable for Zach, so he's certainly not stressing the cardiovascular system at the moment. I'm fairly sure the legs are feeling it at the moment, but we will start to see this heart rate drop down. 259 watts, 84 revs per minute. So spinning along there, Zach's obviously a bit of a spinner rather than a grinder. That's always what you often see in the climbers. They often like to spin up these hills, get their legs working because they don't have that raw torque. You often see these sprinters trying to really get their torque going really strongly, low revs to try and pull themselves up the hill. Castro now, RPM, is halfway through the race. 352 watts, 93 cadence, spinning along. 10.8 kilometers, halfway up this lap, but we've got 32 kilometers to go. So we're now halfway over the hump of the hill. This is all downhill. This is where we will see the power of the pack, the draft of the pack, the sheer aerodynamics of a collection of riders blasting down the other side of the hill, and I'm fairly sure they will eat into that lead that Castro currently has. But to be fair, he's not resting on his laurels. He's continuing to work. He's continuing to push the pace. So he's certainly not having a bit of a breather. He knows that the draft of the pack and this second half of this first lap is going to be strong enough to catch him up. Will he be able to stay out? He's currently got 142 meters advantage. Anything over 250 meters in RGT is a significant and quite considerable lead. But do the pack know that he's not registering every heart rate data? Can they see that? Do they know that it's very likely that he'll not be able to validate his performance and so not chasing him down and therefore putting themselves into a position where they're working too hard too early? Gavash currently just spearheading the recovery down the hill. We can see all of these riders ticking into the blues, ticking into the greys, ticking into the greens, just trying to get a little bit of recovery before they hit this tiny little 7% section that we can see coming up just towards the end of the lap. Will we see any downhill attacks? This is where RGT certainly is different to some of the other platforms. This is one platform where you can very definitely attack down the hill. If we look at the power profile on the top left of the corners, look at this is Castro's power profile. We can see that although that little line looks like a heart rate trace is actually his power performance. He's maintaining a static, really steady power. Now that's difficult to do, particularly when you've got an undulating course, but it is also much easier to maintain that and not tire the legs out. We can see some of these riders whose graphs will be exceptionally spiky. That is really sapping Scott Gleason's, for instance. We can see that just spikes up and down. Those little spikes, those little peaks in power, definitely do sap some of the energy from the legs. If you can maintain that consistent pace, that's what your legs want you to do. That means you can pace yourself, get yourself into a comfortable position and be able to tick away at a cadence that's comfortable. As I was saying, Scott Gleason there ticking away at 66 RPM. That probably shows Scott's hand that he's a sprinter at heart. And Gavash there, 88 RPM, probably showing that he's more of a climber and less of a sprinter. So some of these cadences just show some of the riders' hand. If you're clever enough, and if you're looking at your other riders, gives you an idea about where their strengths are if you don't already know them from previous episodes in the Super League series. So we're coming down to a flatter section. Castro still manages to maintain a 400 meter lead, but 100 meter lead. But is that coming down? He's having a bit of a breather now. Does he think he's done enough to be able to stay away, or does he know that this pack is going to close him down? And Castro's decided to pull up, or is it a dropout? Oh, we'll see in a minute. Has he decided that he's done enough? That's his work done for the day. A bit like a pace setter in the race. Maybe he's being paid by the advertising agency to get himself plenty of camera time, get himself on the front, and to try and take it to the race. But I can't see any way back for Castro now. This pack is going to thunder past him, leave him in the dust, which is exactly what they've done. So from a very early attacking position, and maybe the pack could sense this was going to happen, they did not chase him down with any intent at all. So maybe the new Castro was just the poster boy for the team, getting some camera time and then diving off for an early shower. So coming up to 29.1 kilometers to go. Pack staying together, that front pack consisting of around about 11 or so riders continuing to stay together, but classic Rasmus deciding that there's no point staying in a pack. Let's just take it to them. Let's just see what we can do to split these guys up again. Taking it out to the front. The guys that behind him know that they can't just let Rasmus push on, because they know he's got the ability to work hard, to be able to make everybody suffer, and that's exactly what he's doing. So the pack very, very quickly respond to that, close it down with Zach Horner leading the recovery. So Zach is obviously showing that he wants to be part of a team player today. He's not trying to push it too hard. He's certainly closing these gaps down. So he's either playing it safe and making sure that he's in that position where he can jump for the sprint, or whether he's working for one of his teammates like Scott, who we know has got an absolutely devastating sprint. Ted Keeble, R3R, one part of the development team, riding for R3R today, doing well, but certainly doing exceptionally well to support these no pins guys, and the R3R guys are certainly doing well to be able to hold this front group in what looks like a relatively strong field. Ted is one of the heavier guys. We can see, there we go, his RPM down to 67, 68. He's all about the power, is Ted. Try following on a TTT is always a challenge. Dan Stimson, he's got some great positions so far in some of these races. Again, still in the front group, putting himself into position. Very quiet, very unassuming. He just sits there, does his work, sits in the draft, conserves his energy, and he's got some good results for the R3R team. But we can see these exchanges still happening. Nobody's making any serious moves at the moment. Just a few little cheeky exchanges, just vying for front position, just kind of flexing the muscles a little bit, just stretching the legs a little bit, but nobody really any concerted efforts to break free of the pack of riders in the front. We've got some of these top names. Kevin Barkley there, who's currently lying second in the silver bronze category, still there in the front group, riding for OTR. One of the big RGT race organisers. Got to be careful there, Kevin. Just don't drift off the back. Don't fall asleep. You don't want to be in that dangle of death off the back of the pack, because it's so easy for that gap to open up and then for you to disappear off the back. This is where positioning in RGT has a huge impact. So in RGT, if you're off the side there as Dan Stimson is, you have to work extremely hard in that wind, and you have to recover, get yourself tucked back in again, and then be able to put the power on again to be able to stay in that draft. Overcook it, as we can see Kevin doing, takes you out to the side, into the wind. You're having to work hard to stay there. But if you ease off too much, you will disappear out the draft, out the back, and it's race over. So we have 11 riders in this front group. We're then following a huge gap to the following riders of Broom, Oram, Caruso, Krajewski and Ostergaard, who are more than 600 metres behind, clearly in the second chase group having their own race. Sam Kimber now doing exactly the same, coming off the side, disappearing off the back and having to work hard to make it back on. There's that second chase group. So we currently have 7 riders, I think, in that chase group. Restart Racing there with Pleasure and Kroskowski, Autumn and Caruso from Team ADR in there too. So we've certainly got some riders there who can store some good points for the team and continue to keep them up the standings. Will Team ADR be doing enough today to be able to maintain their position? I suspect so. ECKD with not a very big following there today. Only Rasmus Felbel are really representing the ECKD team in the front group presently, so this allows Team ADR to be able to maybe extend their lead. Here's the live leaderboard at the moment. From Torm Cycle Clothing, Zach Horner, SB from No Pins, Kimber, Gleason, Jenko, Stimson, Gavash, Felbella, as well as Bass Shaik, of course, in that front group. There we are, back with the front group now. So they've currently got a 600-meter lead from that second group. That's not going to close down in any hurry. They're now starting to come to a real steep downhill section. This is where they can really get some recovery. And we can see that power graph there from Django. We can see where that really big spike of power up that bit of uphill section. And then we can just see how it really drops back all the way down into the blue and grey zone, where he's trying to get as much recovery as he possibly can before we hit this tiny little spike that's going to hit us in about 1 kilometer's time. Just that cheeky little kicker before the downhill sprint finish. This is where the riders will get the opportunity just to get their timings right for this second lap for the sprint finish. Where they're going to launch their attack. Ted Keeble now pushing off the front, definitely trying to make these guys work hard. Everyone should be well recovered off that downhill, so it would be very surprising if we catch anybody out here. But Ted making sure that nobody just rests on the laurels, just seeing who's got it to be able to kick up this 7% little incline before they head over the top. Red numbers on the whole of the front pack there, so everybody's working hard. Everybody knows they have to work hard to stay in this draft. Disappear out this draft, disappear out the race, disappearing points right before your eyes. Gavash there, coming off the front, followed by No Pins again. SB this time. SB kind of doing all the closing down, making sure that nobody's disappearing off the front without his say-so. He's being the governor of the front pack there today, keeping an eye on anybody that disappears off the front, just making sure that they behave themselves. No naughty boys at the front of the pack now. No stealing everyone else's lollies. Making sure everyone gets in safely, which he's done very well there. That's frustrating if you want to attack and you've got somebody just reining you back in again. So we've got almost halfway through this race, almost at the end of the first lap, and we've got a nice, lovely attacking number of 11 riders in this front group. We will see 2 or 3 of them go. Will we see No Pins with their 3 riders in this front group really putting it to the likes of Rasmus, who wants to be attacking? Will we see the all 3R guys working together to try and push things a little bit as well? Rasmus freewheeling there, super tuck in there, Rasmus. Oh, Rasmus, look at that, making the most of this downhill section. 54 RPM, just getting himself in a nice little comfortable super tuck position there. Chilling out to the vibes of Pete Tong and Ibiza, no doubt, without his earphones on, which is such a shame. Yeah, he's just kind of taking it easy there, Rasmus. He's an experienced rider. He knows when he has to work and knows when he can rest, and just did that beautifully there now. Looks comfortable, does Rasmus. Looks like he might have his camera on super slow-mo, just for added effect. So, what will we see in this second lap? Will we see the same riders taking it to the pack as we did in the first lap? Will we see some different names deciding to take it off the front? We haven't seen Bass Shaik taking any of the leads so far. Kevin Barkley there hasn't really done any of the attacking yet either. He's been sitting in really quite nicely. R3R starting to do a little bit of work off the front. Zach Horner continuing to sit at the front there. Both him and SB have done a lot of the closing down so far. And here's the second chasing group staying together as well. Will they be able to hold it together all the way through, or will we see some attacking coming up from there? We saw Caruso in the early stages of the race really taking it to the front pack, not being able to sustain that. Will he be able to do the same to this chasing second pack, or will we see these guys staying together, just tapping it home until we go through? Pedersen, who was currently sitting in the top 10, just disappearing off the back of that second group by the looks of things. Yeah, off that second group with Brask, with Sesson up the front there. Sesson, big concerted effort to try and get back on. This is going to be a canny little effort. Let's just see whether he makes it back onto this chasing group, or whether they will not let him back on again. He's putting in some good efforts. The pack in front of him do not seem to be pushing the pace, so he's got a good chance, if he can maintain this effort, to get back in the draft and get himself back into a position where he can score some reasonable points. Will Pedersen and Brask be able to follow him back into this chasing pack, or will Sesson, has he broken free of them and he's clearing? Now we can start to see that pack just starting to just respond a little bit. They don't want to let him back in again. Oram looks like his race is over. Looks like he hasn't got the ability to be able to hold on. This is going to be taking a lot out of Sesson to be able to chase back on. He needs to get into this pack, and he needs to get into this pack quick, because he will not be able to sustain that red zone for long. We can see he's hitting the red zone and then having a bit of recovery, as we can see now. Hitting the red zone, then having a bit of recovery. Yeah, that gives you a bit of a rest, but it is absolutely sapping energy from the legs every time you hit those spikes of power. As you can see, his power graph on the top left hand side there, as he just gets into the draft, saving 100 and 200 watts there. And we can see Brask and Pedersen dragging Oram back in, so they've all made it back into that second chasing pack. So we now have that bigger pack again. The likes of Brask, Oram, Pedersen and Sesson will all want this pack just to kind of take their foot off the gas now, to be able to give them a chance to recover. But will anybody decide that that's not what they're going to do and take it to them? Nope, it looks like they're quite happy just to let these guys get a bit of recovery on this bit of downhill section before they come to the end of the first lap, which we can see that banner there. So lap 1 is about to end for this second and chase group. Halfway there, halfway down, halfway to go. 1 lap to go, 21.6 kilometers racing left to go in this 7th race of the 8 series No Pin Super Series. So Helveg, Horton, they obviously just dropped off that front pack and just weren't able to maintain the pace in the second pack. Currently riding together, they're really in no man's land at the moment. They've got 800 meters to the chase group in front of them, and then they've got another 900 meters to the third main pack behind them. A bit further down the road, we've got another twosome chasing behind Berub and Ogzuglu. That's a great name that I can't pronounce, so I do apologize about that. Another duo, so these two will be working together. Siemens and it looks like it's like the 2x2x2. The RGT riders went in 2x2s. The RGT races went in 2x2s. It's like the world's about to end. They're all going in 2x2s into the arc that is the beautiful wine country of California. Although we've got a 3 there as well, just to break things up again. 2's company, 3's a crowd. Will one of these guys drop off? They got Mr. Furlong, Ms. and Gregson there. Luckily, they're just taking it fairly easily. And now we've got a group of 4 behind them. So we've got these groups just starting to break up a little. We've got a big group in the front, big group in number 2. And then we've got 2s, 3s and 4s chasing that. So the good thing is that we've got these groups. This makes all of these races competitive. D'Agostino from Team RDR, he knows that he wants to try and push forward to try and maintain that dominance in the league positions for his team. De Jong on his own, position 35. That's a tough place to be. Nobody in front. But Victor, I'm sure that Victor will catch him up very quickly from Spain, and he will no doubt join his solo rider who's in front. We can see riders all the way down to Metters from Belgium in 30th position, again in that solo position. Oh, Fat Bunny. Well, Fat Bunny, you very rarely see a Fat Bunny winning any races there. And Christiansen overtaking the Fat Bunny. Too much chocolatista, Fat Bunny? I'm fairly sure that's the reason that you're down in 40th position. Get yourself on the diet, get yourself to Thin Bunny. That's what you want to do. So, back with the front group. This is where the action is. SB now taking a bit of an attack. No longer wanting to be the chaser, wanting to be the instigator. But Rasmus is not letting that happen. Rasmus, as usual, not letting anybody take in the attacking duties. He's continuing to work. And there we can see Shaik starting to put a bit of effort in. Maybe we'll see a bit more of Shaik this lap. Rasmus still grooving and moving in his beach bar there over in Denmark, looking super cool, as we would expect nothing less from him. No John Beams on camera today to join him with his disco lights. Rasmus sadly on his own, mixing his own tune. But front group sticking together. Are we going to see this little bit of a testy section now? Are we going to see riders starting to look around at each other? They know they've got these couple of really tough, they've got 3, maybe 4 tough sections ahead of them. Are they starting just to look at things a little bit now and just waiting until this first steep section comes to get any attacks? Or are they just currently going to play with each other? Second group now, we can start to see a bit of action there. Caruso starting to take some of that attacking duties over in that second group. Are they now going to try and break things up? The start of the second lap, are they going to start be attacking as well? That's starting to thin out, that second group. Will we see this second group break up before we get to these steep sections in this second lap? 2 very distinctive groups here. Lots of points up for grabs, still all to play for, with only 1 week left after today's race. And we've got some big names not around there today, so some big points up for grabs. We can see, looking at these riders, look at their LPMs, look at their wattages. 400 watts, 78 RPM, Pedersen putting out there. And in the front group, 270 watts, 83 RPM. So this front group definitely taking things just a little bit easier, but they've got plenty of space in the pocket with regards to the chasing group. That's not really going to close down, I don't think. So this front group know that they can just chill a little bit, which they very much seem to be doing at the moment. Nobody's taking on these attacks at the moment. Sam Kimber there just taking the front, but not a big concerted effort. Zach Carner deciding that he wants to just keep things ticking over at the front there, keep himself in that front 3. Positioning is all important when we come to these little hills that are coming up. It's just going to kick up a little bit now, 2.5%, 3%. We'll see those numbers starting just to creep up again as riders know that they've got to position themselves in a good position, get themselves in the draft ready, because they know that when we hit that red incline, things are going to start to hot up a little bit. Nobody wants to be left behind from this front group, because there's a canny little drop of 436 meters to that second group. Coming up to a lap rider who's just having a little tootle there. Nice social ride around the vineyards of California, probably sampling some of the Cabernet Sauvignon as they go around, one of the famous wines in this region. I'm fairly sure that Scott Gleason has tried a Cab Sav in his time, I'm fairly sure. Although, what's your guesses on what Scott's favourite wine is? I have to think about what that one. I'm fairly sure there'll be a red guy. I'm fairly sure about that. He looks like he's a refined character, does Scott. I'd be very surprised if he was a white man. I'm fairly sure he'd be into the rouge 100% of the time. So just got a message there from Castro. So as we suspected, Castro's apologised to us all because, unfortunately for him, his heart rate monitor failed during the race. So Castro, knowing that it was probably going to be a bit of a concerted effort for not really any gain, decided to pull the plug. on his race as Sun 2 decided to pull the plug and his heart rate monitor, which is a real shame that we saw Castro, because he was putting in some good attacks. He was really attacking, really made this front group work hard. So sorry to hear that, David. Hopefully you'll get that Sun 2 heart rate monitor sorted and be back smashing it off the front again next week on week 8, the final week, chosen by Stephen Briley, who continues to be in the front group of this race. Now that's SB has been doing some great work in the previous races, but because of the work he's been doing, he often drops off, but he's still there. Kevin's still up there. Chris, where are you today, Chris? Where's the gringo when we need him? Kevin Barkley, Kevin Barkley's still up in that front group. He's still got some great points there as well, and he's still in real fighting position for taking that title in his category. So I'm fairly sure that Kevin will just he'll not be putting any work out in the front, as he was not doing. So as we said, Kevin's just sitting in the draft there, not putting any concerted effort in, hoping to hang on, I think, as long as he possibly can. Gav Ash now taking it to the front. Great to see Gav Ash putting some attacks in. Gav Ash is somebody who hasn't really shown his hand in many of the races so far, but it's great to see Gav actually starting to put some work in, taking it to the guys in the front. Gav's up there. Zach Horner's still there. Felbel is still there. Baz Shaik now starting to put some efforts in, as we maybe thought. Maybe Baz was just hanging back on that first lap, and now starting to really put some effort in. Baz now won this steep section, 5.4%, 418 watts, 66 revs per minute. Does this show his hand? Is this Baz showing that he is a sprinter at heart, and he is putting himself to the front of this crew, giving himself a little bit of slippage, because he knows that the real climbers, the spinners, the light guys, the pretty boys who like to undo their vest tops as they climb these mountains, kind of take him up and take him over. There's that corner there, taking it up, spinning around there. Baz continuing to grind up this hill at 69 RPM, making sure that he's using every single torque of those enormous quads that I'm sure he probably has hiding under his tight lycra shorts. So, bit of toing and fro in there. People just vying for position. Well, Felbala just dropping off the back there, but I'm sure Rasmus won't there be for long. Ted Keeble still there going into the red. Sam Kimber there in the purple top again, putting some attacks in. So Sam's doing a bit of work on the frontier as well, but is he doing enough to be able to create some gaps? I think we're not going to see any gaps created with these attacks. This is going to have to take one massive, big concerted effort to take it over the top of this, and where we might see that happening is this next section coming up, where we can see those couple of red stripes just before they hit the top of the climb. This is where we might see the real concerted effort to take it to the bottom of the hill and the finish line. Rasmus still working hard there, still rocking and rolling, continuing to stay in the group and just easing off some of the attacks at the moment, giving himself a bit of recovery time. SB continuing to be the babysitter for the front group, but because it's all 3R of the front, he's not one to close it down. Kevin Barkley making sure that he's putting himself in a position, just kind of keeping his legs ticking over from his drumming yesterday. Sitting in the front there, bit of a gap coming to this chasing group, but I don't think that's going to stay there for very long as the rest of the pack close down this front three. Rasmus just wiping the sweat from his eyes there. Obviously there's beautiful plastic glasses, not quite so good for getting the sweat. He just needs a couple of windscreen wipers on either side, doesn't he? Really is what he needs. That would definitely set off the thing. All he needs is a bit of windscreen wipers, bit of Timmy mallet, and looks the part. Ted Keeble, Scott Gleason, Zach Horner, SB, no pins, and all three are working together to push this pace on the other side of this flat section. Second group now, Caruso again being attacking, followed by Broom and Mallard. That group looks like it may just have broken up a little bit as well. We can see certainly Pedersen's dropped off the back, Sesson's dropped off the back, Orum's dropped off the back, so there's certainly been some work going on there. Mark Swadden, one of the no pins guys and race organizer for R3R, is money on the linebacker Scott Gleason. All that wine talk will make him thirsty to finish. I'm sure it will, Mark. But Mark, you'll have to tell me, what is Scott's tipple of choice? Is it a red Cab Sav, or does he tend to go for something a little bit more refined around the vineyards of California? So I think this is going to be interesting. Who has the sprint? We know that Zach can finish things with a bit of an attack. We know that Scott has the sprint. We know that Rasmus can take an attack out and make it stick for the rest of the group. But what about the rest of the team? Does Kev Barkley have anything left to be able to hold onto this front group and compete at the end? Will Bashike, will he be the little dark horse and be able to take it forward? Will Rasmus continue? He's yo-yoing back and forwards there. Rasmus is obviously trying to get some recovery. Jenko, who's been quiet this second lap, is he just keeping something in his pocket to be able to unleash a little bit of power come the end of the race? Rasmus just sticking off the back there in that dangle of death. And now we can see all the groups on the road there now. Top right hand corner, we can see that second chase group slowly thinning down. We've lost a few of the riders. Oram, Sesson, Pedersen have all dropped off that second chase group. Front group have managed to maintain a solid contingent of 11 riders. Nobody seems to want to drop off this group, but we can start to see Rasmus is definitely either playing it very cool or he's starting just to struggle a little bit off the back of that pack. But if I know Rasmus, I know that he is not suffering quite enough yet to be able to drop off the back. Dan Stimson now with an unusual attack off the front. It's unusual to see Dan Stimson off the back. I think that's purely accidental. Certainly never meant that. Dan Stimson's never been known to attack anything other than a sweet shop on a Saturday afternoon. Zach Corner now with the front. Look at these red numbers, so we can see exactly what we suspected. This little sneaky little steep section before we got to the top of the hill. Is this a team attack from no pins? We've got Zach Corner, Scott Gleason, SB in fourth place, interspaced by Bashike. But we can see the rest of the pack. They're still there. They're not giving in. They're not letting anybody break free because they know, get over the top of this hill with numbers, that draft is going to carry you down and it's going to be difficult to close it up. But are we starting to see some riders dropping off? SB just starting to drop off the pace there. Fellballer having to work hard to get back as he chases down Kevin Barkley, who's, after yesterday's race, really putting in a big effort to try and get the front room. Bashike, he's going to have to work hard to close down this gap, and now we can see a very definite gap starting to occur between the front and second. Rasmus knows he has to put the effort in now to close this down. He knows he cannot let Harner and Gleason go on this bit, but this is going to be tough. Rasmus has already shown that he's been chasing off the back. Has he burned himself out? There's 28 meters there. It was 4 meters to Shike and Harner. Yep, he's made it back. Have we now seen an almost certain bit of elastic snapping between the front few and the chasing remainders? So we've got 5 who are competing for this front pack. Will they all be able to stay in? Zach Carter, 5.9 watts per kilogram, certainly isn't making it easy for the chasing Fellballer and Barkley to stay in. And certainly this chasing group know that is certainly not going to be attainable to chase back in. They've got smaller numbers. They've done their work, but they certainly will be getting some recovery. Kevin Barkley, understandably, after yesterday's performances, knowing that he is not going to be able to close that down. Is he going to just work in this position though? Is he going to try and maintain that gap? This is going to burn an awful lot of energy there, Kevin. Kevin's a very experienced rider. I'm fairly sure that he will just ease off the gas a little bit. Not too much though, to allow these chasing 4 to catch him up, get himself recovered into the graft, because there's only 11.9 kilometers to go. He needs to get some recovery. He's not going to be able to stay out there for long. And this chasing 4 are closing Kevin down. They know that Kevin has dropped out the front pack. They know they can swallow him up. Dan Stimson, after his little attack, know he has to work hard now to stay in this pack. He knows that he hasn't got time to have any recovery. He's got to continue to work hard. So this chasing group now to 5 riders. The front group is currently at 4 riders by the looks of it now. So Ted Keeble, Sam Kimber, currently in 10th and 11th position. just dropping off that chasing pack. Sam, who did a lot of attacking work, and Ted Cable also did quite a lot of work there. And now we can see this second group starting to break up even more. Broome starting to take it forward with Caruso and Pledger with Restart Racing. So that second group went from 10 riders down to 5 riders. Now it's down to 3 riders. Have they got enough to actually catch up to Cable and Kimber? I doubt that very much. There's an 800-meter gap between the two. Maillard and Krajewski breaking off there. Those two, they know that they've got to work together in order to be able to hold off the likes of Oram, Ostergaard, Pedersen and Sesson, who will definitely be able to smell some blood from these drop riders. They know they've had a bit of a fight to get dropped out of this second chaser group. Now they know that they've got the ability, if they work together, to be able to close down some of these riders who are being shelled out of this second chasing group. Back at the pointy end, so we've got Zach Harner, Rasmus Felballer, Bas Scheik and Stock Gleason there, all vying for that position. Superb work from Rasmus. Well, Scott's a Bailey's guy, probably with a couple of cubes, I would have thought. Very smooth that, Chris. I can imagine Scott there with a Bailey. I'm absolutely certain he'll have a nice crystal glass, making sure these little fingers just beautifully poised at between 45 and 60 degrees from the glass, just to make sure that he doesn't warm the drink up too much. You don't want to warm Baileys, you don't want to melt those ice cubes, make it all watery and a little bit emulsified. Definitely not. I'm sure he's got that little finger position absolutely spot on, has Gleason. But Zach Harner now, we know Zach can take this to the end. Zach started an attack on this downhill section. We know he can take it to the end. We've seen him take it to the end with Rasmus. Rasmus certainly looks like he was struggling to chase back on that front group. And we can see now Rasmus is just dropping off that back. Is he going to be able to continue to work and maintain this position? Zach knows that that's a weakness. But coming back together again, Scott Gleason going over the top now to take it back to there. Zach Harness, is he going to let that happen? Is he going to let Scott just disappear off down the road? Is he going to control the pace of this chasing pack? Will we see Bas Scheik and Rasmus Felballer having to do some work? I suspect that's what we're going to do. Scott Gleason and Zach Harner are in an extremely strong position now. 2 versus 2. 2 no pins or 3R guys versus 1 ECKD and Bas Scheik, whose team I'm not sure of, to be fair, because you can pick any jersey in RGT. So you could wear anybody's jersey, but be racing for a different team, as you've seen before. Kevin Barkley there. Kevin sitting in 9th position, currently continuing to stay away from Ted Cable and Kimber, but not able to hold on to SB and the team. Dan Stimson now having to work hard to hold on to these guys. Dan will know that this is going to be hurting like hell. Dan up to 170 beats per minute, 163 watts as he eases off. He knows that he's going to have to work hard, but to be able to stay in this group, he knows that the points are there. He does not want to allow Barkley, Kimber, Broome and Caruso to catch him back up, which may well happen if he doesn't continue to stay in this draft for these 4 riders. Back to the front again. Tete-a-tete, Gleason, Harner, Felballer, Scheik. We're under the 10-kilometer mark. This race is almost finished, but we've still got another great little dirty 7% incline to come just before they hit the finish line, which is where we're going to undoubtedly see lots of effort and plenty of action to happen. Will we start to see things just easing off now? Will we start to see some attacks happening as they go down this hill? Or will there be a bit of a gentleman's agreement? Will they decide to shake hands and go together across the road, hand in hand, making sure that they can share the huge bottle of Cab Sav that Gleason has obviously got waiting for them as soon as they finish across the line? But no, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Scott Gleason, Zach Harner, Bas continuing to take it out. Rasmus Felballer, he's playing either very cool or he's having to work very hard to make... Oh, Rasmus, look, he's as cool as a cucumber. He looks like he might be in trouble on the road, but looking at those beautiful pink sunglasses, he's well in control. Rasmus is putting himself into A1 position It's a shame that we can't see Scott Gleason and Zach Harner on Zoom. It would be great to see what their demeanour is at the moment. Zach Harner, Zach Harner currently ticking along at 153 beats per minute. That's comfortable. But Scott Gleason, probably similar pulse. Rasmus, be interesting to see, just flicking across these 4 riders, how their cardiovascular system is working. Let's see who's putting in the suffering. Let's see who's taking it fairly easy. Coming into Bashai, 150 beats per minute. Zach Harner is who we're focusing on at the moment. Or Scott Gleason, 6.6 kilometers to go. Scott Gleason there, 177 beats per minute. So he's starting to put the bit of effort in there now. Zach Harner, 147 beats per minute. Fellballer, 170 beats per minute. I told he was looking cool as a cucumber. 121 beats per minute. He's positively chilling, is that guy. So definitely looking like he's in trouble on the road, but definitely not looking in. Bashai, 138 beats per minute. So the no pins guys certainly putting in this cardiovascular effort at the moment. Rasmus Fellballer looking like he's in trouble, but certainly his heart rate tells a completely different story. The guys know that though. The guys know that any one of these 4 riders has got enough to take it to the end. We've got 6 kilometers to go. Is anybody going to make a launch for the end early doors, or are they all going to wait for this little uphill section? Jason Group now starting to break up. They've only got 191 meters before the front group. Jenko, Briley, Stimson and Gavash now in that front group. Ted Cable, Sam Kimber working together just behind them. Will they be able to stay as a 4? Will they be able to close this down? There we go, Cable, Barkley and Kimber. Barkley deciding to go for an attack with Ted Keeble as well. All 3 of them definitely working hard up this tiny little incline section. Nobody wants to let it slip. What they really want is for 2 riders to break off and drop one of the riders. And the similar we can see there, Broome, Pledger and Caruso. What all these riders want is to take a rider with them, drop a rider, and then make sure that it's a one-on-one leading to the finish. But everybody knows that's what the crack is. As you can see, these 2 riders together, pointless attacking yet because they've got nobody to drop. They're just going to maintain that gap to Oram and Sesshorn, Oram behind them and Sesshorn who's behind them with Pedersen. They know they're just going to work together hard enough to keep Oram at arm's length. Sesshorn and Pedersen there. Pedersen and Sesshorn do a good little bit of work in that second group to begin with, but not able to sustain that. Pedersen in a position to still score decent points to keep him in the top 10. Sesson there from Team ADR scoring some good points for the team down in the top 20. Brask now in no man's land. Nobody to race in front of him, nobody to race behind him. This is very much an 8-kilometer TT to the finish with Houghton, Helvig and Barub on his tail. But they've got a good 900 meters before Brask. That's probably too big a gap for them to be able to close things down. But stranger things have happened. Back to the front pack again. Gleason, Scheik, Fellballer and Harner still sticking absolutely wheel on wheel in this front group. Nobody is looking like they are going to make an early move yet. Still in the blue zone. People are trying to get some recovery. We've got under 5 kilometers to go. Nobody's making a concerted effort. I'm fairly sure that what we're going to see is there's a little bit of recovery down this little blue section as they go down the hill, and then somebody will almost certainly make a massive attack up this uphill section to come. Who will it be? Will Scheik, who was quiet in the first lap, will he be the one who takes it to the front 3? Will we see Scott Gleason, who we know has got a Bailey's powered sprint in him with these low revs per minute, 78 RPM at the moment, still ticking along slowly? We know he's got the sprint to be able to take it to the end. Will Fellballer recognise that he cannot afford to let the sprinters take him to the end? Will he put a concerted effort in attacking? Or will Zach Harner, who we know is renowned for being able to take an attack forward early doors, do exactly the same? Oh, will there be something between Zach and Scott Gleason that makes sure that they're going to put a coordinated effort in to try and break these 2 guys who are joining them in the front 4? Bit of super tuck going on there. These guys definitely are trying to get a bit of recovery. We're definitely going to start seeing things open up a little bit more. Rasmus looks a lot more comfortable now after his little sticky section that he had on that starting up the hill on the second lap. Rasmus looks in a good position. The front guys probably know that. Zach Harner starting to make some roads. Scott Gleason going into the red. Here we go. They know they've got this really tough red section now coming up. This is where it is going to happen. This is where we will see the race coming to a head. Hahn has already taken off up the roads. Feldballer trying to close them down. Gleason and Scheik very, very definitely trying to make it work. And they come back together again. Nobody manages to make it stick. Scott Gleason going over the top. Is he going to try and sustain that effort? Is he going to ease back off again? Oh, we're seeing these four. It's just a bit like a TTT, isn't it? Everyone's taking the turn on the front. Nobody's able to drop the other. Inside the last 3 kilometers now. Down that other side. Right, so now we've got a very nice downhill finish. Nobody's managed to make the break. This is going to come down to that last sprint finish. Is anybody going to set off early? Are we going to see a last 200, 300 meter absolute smash fest to the end? Who do you put your money on to finish this? Do you put the money on Bailey's boy Gleason? Do we put it out to Zach Harner, who we know has finished strongly before and managed to beat Rasmus in the sprint finish? Will we see Scheik, who we really don't know what his sprint finish is like, start to take it to these guys? Has he conserved enough energy? He's been ticking along quite nicely. 150 beats per minute at the moment. There's Bass 54 revs per minute. We know that he has got torque in those legs. Is he going to be all torque, no action, or are we going to see Bass start to take it forward? And there we go. We can see this is an early attack from Bass Scheik. This is a concerted effort to take it to the end. He's got 2 kilometers to go. This is a long way out, and nobody's going to let him get away with that easily. Rasmus Feldballer coming over the top, taking it to the front now. Scott Gleason and Zach Harner not letting that go either. We will not see any of these riders letting attack go without some form of concerted chase back. Have they broken Bass? Is Bass broken? Is that gap too big? Is he going to be able to work it back and close that gap? Will these 3 let him? Yes, they do. Bass manages to work it. Is he going to take it over the top? Yes, he does. This is just going to be a bit like springboard action. We're just seeing these riders absolutely take it to the limit. One is just having a go over the other. Rasmus Feldballer now working with the no-pins guys to close down Bass Scheik. We've got 1.4 kilometers to go. We are inside the real work area now for this race. These 4 definitely going to take it to a very strong and very competitive finish. I definitely cannot call this. I know Scott's got a great sprint. Bass Scheik's obviously shown that he's got torque in those legs. Zach Harner, we can see you can finish. Rasmus Feldballer has shown that he's always an aggressive rider. He's shown that he's actually in a relatively comfortable position. And there goes Rasmus smashing out 784 watts at a cadence of 103, 145 beats per minute. So he's still got some heart rate in the tank. Scott Gleason following the wheel. Has that done enough to break off Zach Harner and Bass Scheik? Zach Harner's coming back, 7.1 watts per kilogram. Rasmus knows he's got 500 meters to go. He's certainly taking it forward. Scott Gleason sitting in the draft. He's sitting in the green. He's just sitting on his wheel comfortably. Rasmus is having to be a bit more conservative. He's eased off a little bit. He knows that this is going to be a kind of a head-to-head between himself and Scott. He knows that Scott's got a great sprint finish. Rasmus is going to call on this sprint finish again. Scott Gleason there. They're going head-to-head. 8 watts per kilogram, 14 watts per kilogram by Scott Gleason. Zach Harner, 8 watts per kilogram. Scott Gleason just showing that his sprint is far superior to Rasmus, taking it to the line with that 10.9 watts per kilogram. Rasmus Feldballer, a great finish though. Zach Harner taking it in 3rd position, and Bass Scheik knows that he's got 4th comfortably wrapped up, takes 4th position after some really good work with those front 3. Right, here we go. Second group on the road. They've got 500 meters to go. Nobody wants to go yet. Who's got the sprint finish? We know SB can sprint. He's got that in his bag now. He's had a bit of recovery. Jenko, don't know. Gavash, he hasn't really done anything yet. Gavash is the one to go. Dan Stimson, we know Dan can sprint as well. So here we go. We've got 280 meters to go. Who is going to get the power? Dan Stimson, 10.1 watts per kilogram. That's him to 13.5, but Grodjenko 12.1. SB leaving it late. This is going to be tight. Is SB left it timed it beautifully? Is he going to be able to get Simpson on the line? Gavash just taking SB. Is he got enough to take Jenko? Oh, that was a strong, really competitive finish there, that second group. Ted Keeble rolling it in home, just ahead of Kevin Barkley and Kimber, who dropped off at the end there. So Ted Keeble coming into a really nice top 10 position. And Kevin Barkley, after his efforts yesterday, rolling into 10th position. Good scoring points for Kev in that league, who's already in that second position. Sam Kimber did some great work in that first lap, really put in some good attacks. Unknown name for myself was from Sam, but certainly showed that he is one to be reckoned with. Didn't quite have the stamina to be able to stick with the front guys for the whole of the race, but was certainly competitive through that first lap and a bit, putting in a really good show himself, and the only one to really pull off the beautiful purple shirt in the making as well. Sam from the UK coming up in 11th position. As we let Sam cross the line, we can see a really competitive finish coming up between Caruso, Broom and Pledger. Come on, Sam, get a Scooby on. Stop getting us out. No point for what's pick around. We've got three liners behind you. We're trying to smash it home. Get yourself over the line. Right, let's see what these three are going to be doing now. Broom now taking it to them. Caruso there after his bit of attacking. Pleasure there. Caruso has been attacking from the outset. Has he done enough? Has he done too much? Has he got anything left in the legs to take the sprint finish? We've only got 258 metres to go. Oh, it's being a bit cagey now. They know who's got that last little bit. Pledger goes. Has Caruso got anything to respond? I think he's left it too late. I think he backed off. And Pledger just timed it beautifully. He's taken that 12th position. Caruso with some really good attacking in that first lap, taking 13th. And Broom just wasn't able to maintain that finish. Oram rolling into 15th with Pedersen. Oh no, Pedersen's, this is going to be another good head-to-head as well. Pedersen, who we know is already in the top 10. Oram's in the top 10 as well, I think. These two are going to be head-to-head. Look at this. It's absolutely neck and neck. Cannot call this at all. Oram's got it. Pedersen's just sitting in the wheel. Is he just playing it cool? They've still got 500 metres to go. You would think the line was about 10 metres away. This elapse, he is smashing it. They're just playing now. They're just going to ease off. But here we go. Krajewski deciding to take it early with Maillard as well. These two guys have actually only got 50 metres to the guys in front. If they're not careful, they could close this down. This could be a four-man way sprint finish. But I'm fairly sure that both Oram and Pedersen have got enough meters in the tank to be able to hold it forward. So who's going to win that between Oram and Pedersen? Pedersen and Oram. Oram and Pedersen. Pedersen and Oram. Who's going to take it? Pedersen takes an early lead. Oram then comes with a late little spurt. Yeah, and Oram had just timed it beautifully with Pedersen following Mick, and then the two behind Maillard, and Maillard is obviously broken. Krajewski early attack. Krajewski just didn't have the ability to respond. But good ride there. Top 20 position. Followed by Sesson coming in at 19th on his own. Nobody around him. No need to put the effort in, but he's going into the yellow. So he still wants to make a bit of a show of it. Get himself into that top 20. Good top 20 finish there for Sesson. He was certainly competitive in that first lap. Certainly show that he's got enough power to be able to take some attacks, but just doesn't have the stamina to make it stick. Brask, who was in no man's land for a long time, he's pretty much been solo for the last 10 kilometers or so. So this has been a tough last section for him. Coming in to the finish off the top 20th, is he? Trying to super tuck. Oh, don't say you've had a technical. No, I don't think so. That would have been a disaster with only 520 watts to go to finish off in 20th position with a power failure. So we can see there the current standings in the top 20 positions. Scott Gleason taking the win after a great attack on Rasmus Feldballer, who was looking comfortable but just did not have the power to be able to take it to the end. Zach Harnow did loads of work in both laps to close down the front. Bas Shaik, who was sitting quietly doing a little bit of work, taking in fourth position, and a great fifth position for Dan Stimpson, just beating Gavash by literally a hair's breadth into sixth place. Jenko kept himself nice and quiet today, got himself some points. SB, who was definitely the closing down man for the no-pins guys, got himself into a good position. And Ted Keeble, strong Ted from 3R, coming into 9th. And Kevin Barkley, what a performance by Kevin after his obvious efforts yesterday to bring up in the top 10. Here we back down into 21st, 22nd position. Houghton, Berube, they've got 700 meters to go. Are we going to see these two just taking it easy and just leaving it to a sprint finish? Will we see it early doors? As we watch those guys come towards the finish line, just go down that last little bit. Alex Pledger there just timing his sprint nicely to take Caruso, who did a lot of work in the first lap, to 12th and 13th position. Broome and Oram 14th, 15th. Pedersen, who's currently in the top 10 standings, coming in for some good points. Xavier Maillard 17th, Krajewski 18th, and Sesson 19th position. Brask taken in 20th position, but he's been having lots of dropouts, so is Brask going to finish this cross line? I think he has. So Berube now opens it up. Houghton knows, doesn't have anything in the legs, he's just going to cruise it back in. He knows he's comfortably got 21st position in the row, with Houghton coming into 22nd position. Certainly top half of the field, he'd be happy with that. Helvig ECQD knows that he's bagging some important points for his team in 23rd position. And then we start to get down the field where we are starting to see some of the big gaps now. So some of these riders have got over 1.5 kilometers to go. This is where you can see when you've got nobody around you to help with the draft, it's hard to sustain these efforts. And this is where we start to see, as the riders break up, the gaps start to get progressively bigger and bigger, as it's difficult to be able to maintain the speed, to be able to maintain the effort, to be able to hold on to any of the wheels in front of you. And we will see some of these riders coming up in 1s and 2s now as they start to break up. So, what do you think, guys? Exciting? Boring? As expected? Did you predict the winner? Mark Swatton certainly did. Chris Smart certainly backing their man with Scott Gleeson, and it was a good bet. Scott on home turf. But to be fair, where's this rain come from in California? Scott Gleeson now crossing the line, being presented with his celebratory bottle of finest Californian wine, casting it off to one side, probably giving it to Rasmus for his beach bar in Ibiza, while he heads for the Baileys. I wonder if he likes the mint Baileys. To me, that's just wrong. Mint Baileys should never ever hit the shelves, but you never know. Scott might be more refined than that and enjoy his bit of mint Baileys. Coming down the field now, we can see these riders starting to come in. This will certainly be for points. Bit of a training effort. Difficult to be able to maintain that. Kraglund V8. I wonder if that's a V8 engine he's got hiding under that red bike of his. Ticking along there. Coming up into 24th position. 2.1 watts per kilogram. Just cruising home. Doing his warm down. He comes down. Making sure that when he crosses the line, he doesn't drip sweat into his glass of red that's waiting for him just by the side of the road there. Here we got Simonsen and the name I can't pronounce with the finish to the end. The Turkish rider taking it with a real well timed and very powerful red zone sprint to take 25th and 26th position. We got Mizzen Gregas 27th to 28th. Still got a bit of way to go, 800 meters to go, so inside the last turn, inside the last K, I'm fairly sure they'll just be playing with each other for the next, maybe the next 300 yards. The Polish and the Italian, the Polish decides to hit the front early, but the Italian counteracts. So here we go. This is now going to be tete-a-tete. We're going to see this for 400 meters. Are we going to see these two guys just mixing it? Mez just sitting in nicely in the draft. Gregas knowing that he doesn't want to be going too early unless you can back your sprint and know that you can hold it for a full 300 meters, which is difficult on RGT. That draft drags you back in again. Gregas with 5.7 watts per kilogram. Miz with 3.6. He's sitting in the draft. He's letting him do all the work. Is Gregas going to be able to put the power down and extend this gap? Will Metz be able to close it down? Is he left it too late? He's coming back. He's going to get. Is he going to get him on the line? I think he is. That's a beautifully timed finish by Miz from Italy. He certainly did miss that attack, did he? Brilliant. block down in 29th position, still the top 30 riders, and we can see we've got, you know, almost 50, a good 10 minutes from the first rider crossing the line to this 15th rider there now. So we've got Block coming into the finish in the top 30, and we've got 6 kilometers to go for the last riders. So positions today. What a race there today. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Really good finish from those front four. Those front four, as they headed over that hill, Gleeson, Feldballer, Horner and Scheich all made some really competitive racing. Scott Gleeson, known for his sprint ability, taking it from Rasmus Feldballer, who, even though look comfortable, we know that he just does not have that raw power to take it to the riders. A bit of a lighter rider. Zach Horner, 4.27 watts per kilogram. Zach just showing how hard he worked to be able to stay in that front four, and Baz Scheich taking 4th position. Dan Stimson, great result for Dan, taking it just from Gavash from TMC. Jenko, Brierley, Keeble and Kevin Barkley on his second ride, seeing out the top 10 today. So, positions 11 to 20. Sam Kimber, who did some great attacks in the first lap. Alex Pledger and Caruso, who was attacking as well. Broom and Oram, so great sprint finish from those guys. Pedersen and Maillard, again, some great finishing. Krajewski, who's always been in that top 20, who's always been there or thereabouts. Sesson, who did a lot of work in that first lap. And Brask, who basically soloed his way home for that 20th position. So what a fantastic race we had there today. So next week, last week, stage 8, the Strines and Homos. This is picked by Stephen Brierley from the No Pins team. This is the 37.7 really rolling course with a 966 meters elevation. This is going to be absolutely brutal from the minute they set off, which is an uphill start, and it just rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls, and then we get to the end. We've got a 3-mile climb all the way up to the finish at 37.69 kilometers. So this is going to be brutal. We will see this undoubtedly whittle this front field down to a small number, I'm sure, and then we will see that last climb absolutely smashing it. Will we see the likes of Scott Gleeson, heavier sprinter, being able to hold on to the end? But this is going to be made up for one of the lighter riders. Will we see the likes of Zach Horner, who certainly is going to be able to hit these hills a bit harder, taking up for the No Pins team? Will we see Rasmus back in action again and continuing to be attacking? Will we see John Beams back, or will Igor Kops be back in action? Will he be back next week to try and get that last win of this Super League Series 2 season? Thank you very much for joining me today. Thoroughly enjoyed today's race. Next week is going to be no different. It's going to hurt. Wherever you are on the road, it is going to hurt. But this week we saw some great racing, we saw some fantastic attacking, and we saw a fantastic sprint finish from Scott Gleeson. So until next week, where I will see you on the Strines and Homos, have a great week. And for those of you in the UK, have a lovely bank holiday next week. I will see you, and I will start finishing off my Easter eggs in preparation for session 8, week 8 of the No Pins Super League Series. Until next week, have a great week. Thank you all for watching. You've been watching ZMS Streams. Thank you to Damon behind the scenes for his superb coverage, and I will see you all again soon.